Okay. People know that I speak on the Darlie Routier case. 1996 out of Rowlett, Texas. She was convicted of killing her two children, Devin and Damon. And she's been on death row in Texas ever since the conviction. And she has a lot of support, including Rich Prater, who's he's very passionate about it, and he's very with Rich. If you don't support Darlie, you can still talk to him if you come to him with some kind of respect, and if you're not dogging on Darlie, he will listen to you. I've always maintained a great friendship with him, even though excuse me, even though we are on different sides of this. I try not to go into his. I'll listen to every video that he puts up, and of course I can argue with every bit of it. But I try not to do that so much because he has a right to state his opinions. Note on his last video, I went and commented on some of them, which I really try not to do that. I just let him have his space, and I'm not going to get. He has never been insulted to me, never. Even though we're on different sides of it, he's never been insulted to me at all, ever, and I've never been insulted to him. With some of the supporters over the years, they get insulted when they state something that's clearly wrong, and a lot of times they do. Some people just look at Darlie and they say, "Oh man, she's got to be innocent," and they don't. If they say something that is wrong and I correct it, it pisses them off, and they come back insulted, and I respond to that. Rich does not do that. He sticks to his case. But I've been looking at some of his videos and the comments under him. And I wanted to respond to a couple of them here. Misinformation is not good in a case like this. But let's, this Nancy Susan Kruger. Reasonable double, I think she meant doubt, has not, in my opinion, been exceeded in this case based on the circumstantial and cross-contaminated evidence. Well, circumstantial evidence is evidence. But it has to be compounded with physical evidence. And it is, in this case. Circumstantial evidence is evidence. I don't see any cross-contaminated evidence, and the prosecutor, defense didn't bring it up. Take out the silly string video. Her flashy style and lifestyle. Why would you take out her lifestyle? You can't take out her flashy style and lifestyle because a lot of their problems were based on money and lifestyle. And they've admitted it. The tipped over vacuum cleaner, broken wine glass, what's left? Zip. Yeah, same thing for an intruder. What's left? Zip. But we don't have an intruder giving 16 inconsistent stories as to what happened. That makes it circumstantial, when her stories don't stay the same. If the perp cut the screen first with his own knife, then reached for a knife out of the wooden block, shards of the screen would have fallen off in his hand down into the block. What makes you think that shards of that very light screen, very light, I mean it's almost like a feather, that screen, would stick to his hand as he walked through the garage, through the utility room, and into the kitchen? What makes you think that shard would have laid there? You try that with some screen shards. Just lay them on your hand and go for a walk and see what happens. They fly off. You try it. It's been done. The crime scene is contaminated by scores of people running in and out. How could that poorly collected cross-contaminate? Okay. Let's say that the medical team got there and one of the children was still alive. Actually, they were both still alive. And the police said, "Nope, you wait. You wait out here. We have to go through here first and dig up all the evidence before we can let you in to take care of this child." You know what the supporters be saying? They waited outside too long and let him die. They've already said that, as a matter of fact. When the medics pulled up, the police... Darlie was saying he's in the garage, the intruder. The police had to clear the house to be sure that there was no intruder in there so that their medical professionals can get in there safely and tend to the victims. So at one point, the supporters were saying, well, they waited outside too long. And they let Damon die. They let him die. Because they waited too long. So it's either they're too safe or they're not safe enough. Nothing is going to make these people that support Darlie half-heartedly happy. Period. How could that contaminated evidence be submitted in court in the first place? Anything could be submitted. You have to prove that it's contaminated, which it hasn't been done. It was challenged. That is itself is baffling. As well, if Darlie had premeditated the situation, premediated, it says, she meant premeditated, the situation, she would have removed that necklace at the sink for a clear cut across her neck. Let me take this off again. You know what? That's kind of silly. Actually, if she would have premeditated it, she didn't premeditate it. It was impulsive. I think that Darren told her that night that he wanted her gone. You notice in their first statements they didn't mention anything about speaking of separation or anything. Their written statements, they didn't speak about divorce. But later on, they said that they were talking about divorce that night. They omitted it the first time from the police. So they were thinking clearly. When they omitted the fact that they were arguing the night of the murders, they were thinking clearly. Because let's say that their statement said, yeah, we were fighting and he told me to leave and we want a separation and we were talking about divorce and I've been sleeping down there for a week. If they wrote that down, that 2 hours before their children came up dead, that they were talking about divorce, that further puts the finger inside the house. Parents arguing, kids dead. Finger inside. They wanted the finger to be away from inside the house. Somebody did something inside the house. So the first thing that they told the police, both of them, was a lie. And they wrote it down. The very first thing was a lie. They left out the fact that they were arguing about divorce that night. If she was laying on her side, it would have been bunched up around her neck where the blood pooled around her back shoulder into the pillow into the attack. Well, she wasn't laying on her side. She said she was laying on her back. She drew a picture of herself laying on her back. I mean, what else? Do we need to draw you a picture? Because Darlie literally did draw a picture of how she was laying. She was laying on her back. No motive. There doesn't have to be motive. You can take that out. There does not have to be motive. Yes, there. And if you want to come up with a motive, Darren said that he was leaving her. Darren's mother worked for Children's Services. She was a CASA worker. Who would get the kids? No increase in life insurance policies. No history of mental illness. Just because someone doesn't have a history of mental illness, it means that some of their mental illness could have been just starting and not treated yet. When somebody writes in their diary that they are thinking about ending their own life, that's a form of mental illness 3 weeks before the murders. When you're thinking about killing yourself, you are depressed. That is a form of mental illness. Circumstantial and contaminated, there are no circumstantial evidence. You can take out the mental illness because she had some. You can take out the circumstantial because circumstantial evidence is evidence. Contaminated evidence. Well, you can speak about where Mosty, her defense attorney, got up to show the knife to the jury. He was showing the knife to the jury, and he cut himself with it. And they left it in evidence, contaminated by the defense. She didn't lure her up and went willingly to the police station. Well, let's say they asked her to come down to the police station, and she didn't show up. She had to show up. Because if she didn't show up, they'd say, well, she didn't willingly come down here. Cops pled the fifth. One cop pled the fifth because he was accused of a crime in open court. And on that, where he took that fifth, he didn't answer any more questions about that recording. But he answered every other question. except for what he was accused of, that recording. Author and juror both apologized to Darlie. Okay. Author, Barb Davis. Her husband was one of Darlie's attorneys. Author, Barb Davis. Convicted drug dealer. Right? During the trial, when she first was saying that Darlie was innocent on the Lisa Gibbons show, you can watch Cerrito lean over to her and say, "We're going to sue you." And then the next segment comes out, and all of a sudden Barbara Davis was told by a deep throat source that has never been revealed in the DA's office. Never been revealed. That Darlie was innocent. Right? Let's not forget the character of these people that they are saying apologize to Darlie. Barb Davis never did. Her son, Troy Davis, they found that was dealing marijuana and GHB. The police came to the house to search the house that he lived in with Barb Davis in North Ridgeville, Texas. Troy Davis pulled a gun on one of the police and they shot him. That was in 1999. They killed him. And she's a convicted drug dealer. But rest her soul. Barb Davis and I did not get along. And, but rest her soul. So if you want to talk about credibility, a drug dealer apologized to Darlie. The juror, Charles Sanford. I did an interview with him. And I wish I still had it. But we all know that he wasn't right. He wasn't the smartest man. But he said that Darlie Key contacted him. And through that book, Media Tried, Justice Denied, that crap book that Chris Brown wrote. And that he tried to renege his, he tried to recant his guilty plea and they wouldn't let him do it. Because once you put a guilty plea down, that's it. But he said he never saw the pictures of Darlie's bruises. Right? Or he wouldn't have voted her guilty. He never saw the pictures of Darlie's bruises. Well, you see him, one of Barb Davis's last ones, I think it was called The Last Defense, where she said, yeah, the jury saw those pictures. They saw every one of them. Well, Charles Sanford said he didn't see the pictures of the bruises on Darlie's arms, even though they were passed around and discussed. The bruising was discussed in length during the trial. That means Charles Sanford wasn't paying attention. If he didn't see it or he didn't hear it, he wasn't paying attention. The whole family thinks she's innocent. Well, let me tell you this. If there's a family member that thinks she's guilty, do you think they're going to say something to the other family members? We don't know the whole family thinks she's innocent. We don't know that. We know that her sister Dana won't speak on it. I just wanted to speak on some of these comments here. It's not Rich, it's some of the comments. And she corrected it. Now, it's not that these people are stupid or anything like that. It's just they're misinformed. I'd like to panel with Rich. Because we can debate this case, Rich and I, without getting in an argument. Respectively. Like Darlie would want it to be. Remember, I started out as a supporter. Darlie wouldn't want people going at each other like this, even if she was guilty. Even if she was 100% guilty or 100% innocent. I don't think Darlie would want these people to be fighting like this. But, check out Rich's channel, RJP. That's all he does is Darlie stuff. And he's a very respectable man. He's not like some of these others. Some of them, I've dealt with men in the Darlie case like Elias Saig, who passed away, who was in love with Darlie, admitted it. Patrick King, who was another one that was in love with Darlie. He's the guy that said that he would get his guns and break that Foxy, Amanda Noxie out. David Moff. He's the one that I gave the Free Darlie Facebook group to when I felt like I couldn't support her innocence anymore. Dave Moff actually had his house surrounded in a police standoff because he was in there tearing up. He got mad at his ex-wife who threw away all his Darlie letters. Not ex-wife, ex-fiance. That threw away all the letters he had from Darlie. And she told him, that his obsession with Darlie is what, her name is Joan Zern. His obsession with Darlie is what, caused her to leave him. But he was in love with her, and I had to deal with it. He's the admin of Free Darlie. That I gave him the group. I came on there one day and I said, look, I had been running that Free Darlie group because I thought she was innocent. I thought Darren did it. And then when the lies from her family, from her mother, she kept lying. Her mom kept lying about little minute stuff. And I started thinking, well, if her mom would lie about this. And then she lied directly to my face. She lied directly to my face. She said to me, I always thought Darren did this. All right? It was in an instant message. She said, I always thought Darren did this. We were talking about when Darren put up his Facebook page. And it pissed Darlie Key off because he didn't mention anything about the murders. That's what I was bringing to her attention. We were friendly. I said, he put up this Facebook page. He doesn't mention anything about his kids or anything like that. And it pissed her off. And she was going on about Darren and bimbos and how he's talked too much in the past. And that she always thought that Darren did this. And I left that conversation alone until it was a few days later when people were talking about why they thought Darlie was innocent. That was a topic. And I said, well, I think Darren did it. And back then, 14, 15 years ago, whatever it was, back then you didn't accuse Darren. That was one of the things they didn't do. They stuck up for Darren. They coddled him just like they do Darlie. They coddled Darren. They protected him because they didn't want people talking about him. But now, not so much. Now they're running, well, this didn't work, that didn't work, last defense, well, maybe Darren did it. Now they're starting to slightly accuse Darren, which back then you didn't do that. So I said, well, I think Darren did it. And the whole group started jumping all over me. Some of the big players that are still there, like Patrick King and Dave Moffat, Gia Leone, and some of these big people that are, you don't talk about Darren like that. How dare you? What's wrong with you? Blah, blah. I started getting these rude comments about how I don't talk about Darren like that. I said, wait a minute. I'm not the only one that thinks Darren did this. And they were like, oh, yes, you are. None of us believe he did that, blah, blah. I said, Darlie Key herself thinks Darren did that. No, she doesn't. You're a liar. Why would you talk about Miss Key like that, blah, blah, blah. Oh, really? I posted the conversation. I posted the conversation between Darlie Key and myself, the instant messages. Then they, instead of addressing what Darlie Key said and that I proved it right, they accused me of attacking Darlie Key. No, I'm not attacking Darlie Key. I'm just saying, I'm not the only one that thinks Darren did this. And then she lied out of it. She lied, said she was confused that day. She didn't know what I was talking about. No, it clearly said, I always thought Darren did this. So I left that private Free Darlie group and started my own. I didn't even leave support after that. After that, I still believed that she was innocent. So I started my own Free Darlie. That's how it happened. It happened based on Darlie Key telling lies to me when I was sticking up for her. Can you imagine? Me and Pamela Lake Collins were great friends. She's one of the strongest people that knows the case. And she came into my Free Darlie and she was trying to tell us how she's guilty and blah blah blah. And I told her, and people were telling me to kick her out. I said, no, I ain't kicking her out. Hell with that. Let's listen to her. So I listened to her, and I started looking at some of the stuff she said, and it pissed me off because she was correct. And she keeps saying in the group, Brian, Darlie is guilty. And I told her, I said, if you say Darlie is guilty one more time in this group, I'm going to boot you. And I did. Then me and Pam became good friends. You want to know the case? You want your questions answered? Go see Justice for Devin and Damon Routier. Go talk to Pamela Collins. If you want everything. She's one of the people who helped me. We learned off each other. But she's one of the, like, if I got stuck on a question and I couldn't figure it out, I would humble myself and ask her. And not only would she come up for the answer, she would bring me the legal papers and the proof every time. But, I really do. I hope that they find something that we've missed. But trust me, we went over it with a fine-tooth comb.